WEAC is angry at Scott Walker, so it's going to take its ball and go home and not participate in any sort of efforts to make Wisconsin's education better. This is so childish. It's so small. It's so petty. Frankly, it validates everything we conservatives have ever said about WEAC. No, that the union is really only concerned about itself, and that they give lip service to caring about the kids or caring about education or caring about the schools. They don't. How else do you interpret this? Apparently, if WEAC cannot get its way on everything that it wants, its leaders are going to pout, and they have no interest in actually participating in any talks to improve the education of Wisconsin. I want to know what you think about this. 799-1130 is the telephone number, or 1-800-838-9476. That would be the Miracle Homes toll-free line. Teachers and non-teachers alike. I mean, how does this possibly reflect well on the union? The state's largest teachers union on Friday declined to participate in a task force that the governor has launched to develop a new system for assessing school quality in Wisconsin. This would be a system in lieu of No Child Left Behind, which WEAC doesn't like, teachers don't like, a lot of politicians don't like. It hasn't been a very good system. Mary Bell is the head of the Wisconsin Education Association, a council, of course. She said on Friday afternoon the organization does not agree with the current system for school accountability under No Child Left Behind. So she agreed, we don't like No Child Left Behind, but she says she cannot cooperate in this task force because she doesn't trust Scott Walker. She said the union would continue to share information with the state's superintendent of public instruction, Tony Evers, because he's a lefty. He's also the co-chair of the task force, but they won't participate. She said WEAC will launch its own separate outreach effort in September to gather opinion from around the state on designing an improved accountability system. Oh, that won't be slanted politically. No. A new system to judge the quality of schools is important, the Journal-Sentinel says, because some state leaders, including Walker, believe they might be able to use a homegrown system of evaluating schools in place of the unpopular No Child Left Behind. It will require obtaining a federal waiver from the U.S. Department of Education. They'd have to let us out of No Child Left Behind after we said, see, we have our own system of assessing schools and school quality. That's what they want to do here. Bell said she didn't know if WEAC's declining to participate in the governor's task force would affect Wisconsin's chances of obtaining the federal waiver. She said, quote, I think any time you have a voice of educators at the table, though, you do better. Well, see, so there you are. You're the one declining the invitation to sit at the table. She says anytime you have you have the voice of educators at the table, you do better, or you'd have a better chance of getting a federal waiver if we were participating in this. She admits it. She's the one declining the invitation. So if Wisconsin doesn't get a federal waiver from No Child Left Behind, it'll be WEAC's fault, right? You see what I mean? WEAC admits this effort to develop a new and better system for assessing Wisconsin schools would benefit the state. It would benefit the school districts. They admit we hate No Child Left Behind. But no, we're not going to participate. And if we don't, we might be putting the state's chances of getting out from under No Child Left Behind in jeopardy. But we don't care. We're just pouting right now. They're actually working against themselves, their members, all of Wisconsin, but they don't care. We're just in pouting mode right now. Isn't that what Mary Bell is saying? She admits this could affect Wisconsin's chances to get a federal waiver, admits that WEAC has never liked No Child Left Behind. So, she should be working along with Scott Walker and Tony Evers to get rid of it. Nope, she's pouting. We at WEAC would rather pout, is what she said on Friday. So here we go again. The teachers union cutting off its nose to spite its face. We at WEAC could help make Wisconsin's educational priorities better. We could get involved. Yeah, we could bring our thoughts and our expertise to the table. We could talk how to make school assessments better and schools more accountable and productive. Yeah, we could. But we'd rather act like babies because Scott Walker took our collective bargaining privileges away. We're still mad at him. This is just acting. This is so childish. This is, and they're hurting themselves and their members as much as anything. This is acting like a child. This is like a child refusing to hop in the car to go to Disney World because they feel that they were unfairly punished for something they did 2 months ago. All they're doing is depriving themselves and the family of Disney World. And WEAC, all they're doing is depriving themselves of a seat at the table and a voice in the process. But realize also that in doing so, they're depriving their teacher members of a voice at the table. And this is where it really becomes important. You can say, okay, just WEAC, go off and have your little temper tantrum. But if WEAC represents the teachers and is supposed to, I mean, the teachers are paying benefits. They're paying their dues to WEAC. WEAC is supposed to represent the best interests of the teachers. So if WEAC is not at this table representing its teacher members as Scott Walker and Tony Evers and business leaders talk about the best way to assess teachers and assess learning, they're not representing their members. This is a debate about how to better evaluate teachers and better evaluate schools. You'd think the teachers would want a voice at the table. WEAC is assuring that they do not have a voice at that table. How is that serving their members? WEAC, with its temper tantrum here, really is once again letting its own membership down. Jim on the West Side, you're on WISN.
You know, I'm a public school teacher, and this drives me nuts. I mean, here's Mary Bell, and she's saying she's not going to the table because she can't trust Scott Walker. I'm sorry. Hasn't he done everything he said? How can she say she doesn't trust him when he's done everything that he said?
Well, that's true. You're a teacher. I don't know what you thought about No Child Left Behind. I've taught enough that I thought it was a bad idea. I didn't think that that we should be getting federal rules and federal assessments, on local districts.
That's better.
So, let's say that say Walker and Evers agree to a series of new, strict, ultimately unworkable teacher evaluations during this process. It'll because WEAC wasn't there to say no, right? I mean,
right.
How is WEAC helping you by sitting out of these hearings?
Well, they're not. That's why I'm not going to re-up my union membership. There's no way. I mean, they're just, if there's no money involved, they're not interested, I think.
Well, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Thanks for the call. And they're not interested in representing their members. If they were, they'd say, okay, to represent our members and their best interests, after all, it's what we take their dues for, we have to be at this table. We have to bury the hatchet with Scott Walker. You know what? Don't talk to him during the recesses. But you got to be at the table. Dan on the North Side, you're on WISN.
Morning, Jay.
Morning.
I'm a teacher as well, and I think this is kind of spooky because it's a lot like what the Democrats are doing at the national level with the budget. They figure, well, if we don't provide any input, then we can argue that since we didn't have any input, we can tell you all the things that are wrong with your plan.
Yeah.
So now it's the same kind of thing here. They're not coming to the table, so when it turns out there are things in there they don't like, they can now complain, and they have kind of a plausible deniability.
That's exactly what they're doing. That's exactly what Mary Bell is doing. But how is that helpful?
And it isn't for us in the classroom, which the last caller, I love it, somebody else who said it. This is the reason that several of us at my school have made that financial decision that we made, and
Mm-hmm.
Is it any big surprise when we have an organization that isn't representing truly what we want, which is what's best for our students and best for us?
That's right. And because Mary Bell wants to say, we didn't participate in these hearings, so we don't like what you came to a conclusion of, because she wants to have that sort of ground at the end of this thing, she's going to miss an opportunity to actually represent you and other teachers at this table. Thanks for the call. Scott Walker and Tony Evers could agree to a series of really unworkable teacher evaluations, and WEAC won't be there to even say no or explain why it's unworkable. And this is one of the things that, as someone who has taught, is a real concern. People who haven't taught have a hard time realizing what an average school day is, or what teachers do in an average school day, or what they do after school. A lot of times, you can't really determine what's workable and not workable from the outside, if you will. So if you're going to have business leaders and bureaucrats and politicians dictate to you what type of teachers evaluations you're going to have, or evaluation for success your building is going to have, and WEAC isn't going to be at the table to say this is unworkable, they could really end up with a bunch of nonsense here that then the teachers and the educators have to put up with. How is it at all helpful for WEAC to say, we're going to sit out, and then afterward, we're going to just slam any agreement that you come to? George in Muskego, you're on WISN.
Yes, Jay, let me start off by saying I am a union electrician.
All right.
I'm proud of it. And I have disgruntled members in my union, too, and I say this to them, and I say this to all the union teachers who are disgruntled. Why don't these people just go to a venue where there is no union? For instance, a parochial school or something like that. Why don't they just go to another venue and teach where there are no unions?
Well, they don't have to now. Because, well, first of all, most of the jobs in education are in the public schools. They're not in parochial schools, but they don't have to now because Scott Walker has given them an option to drop out of their union. WEAC leaders, it is becoming more and more clear, don't care. They don't care about their members, and they never have. This is just a point we've been making on the conservative side of the aisle for literally years, but certainly over the last 6 months, very effectively. They care about the union, keeping a grip on power. And can we, with this, finally dismiss any and all notion that WEAC cares about the students? I mean, please, can we insist now that WEAC stop claiming that that anything they do is for the kids ever again? Because it's a bunch of nonsense that none of us believes anymore. Not when they've proven time and time again that the students and the quality of a Wisconsin public school education is really the least of their concerns. And I know plenty of teachers, plenty of WEAC members who are very committed to the kids. They're committed to their schools. They're committed to making the curriculum the best it can be. They are committed to educating their children. The union isn't. And it's yet another reason that I say we in Wisconsin, from teachers to students to schools to school districts, we will all be in much better shape when these unions are just out of the way. George in Green Bay, you're on WISN.
Yeah, I have one comment on this. If I remember right, WEAC put like $800,000 toward the campaign of Evers when he was running for state school superintendent. Now, if I was a school teacher paying dues to WEAC, I would ask them, why not even talk to the guy who just paid $800,000 to elect?
It's a very good question. Mary Bell says what we'll do is we'll just slip Evers our thoughts. That's what she's claiming. Well, we'll just he's a co-head of the task force, so we'll just slip Tony Evers some of our thoughts. Just don't be a baby. Participate in the talks, or you don't really care. I just hope WEAC explodes in on itself now. I really do. I hope it ceases to exist in a few short years. Because truth be told, most teachers are committed to their craft. They are committed to the kids. They are committed to their schools. They are committed to their communities. And over the years, it has been the unions that are most often standing in the way of a full commitment. It's been the union that has been the source of agitation and unrest, right? Teachers like their jobs, and the union comes along and tells them, well, you shouldn't like your job. You shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be upset about this. Oh, you should be upset at your low pay. You should be upset at your benefits. The union has been the agitating force. So good riddance to WEAC. The sooner it dies off, the better. And I hope it does die off. It's not a foregone conclusion, but I hope that so many teachers decide to stop paying their union dues that WEAC is hurting. And I hope that so many teachers in that first and second and third vote, that yearly vote to keep union representation, I hope that after couple of years, WEAC just folds in and implodes on itself. It would be nice if no one even remembered what WEAC stood for in 5 years. I really do think it would be. This is a horrible, counterproductive, selfish organization, and they proved it again over the weekend. All sorts of, this isn't just Walker and Tony Evers. This is Republicans and Democrats from the legislature, state leaders from business, from colleges, from K-12 education, all coming together to say, okay, you don't like No Child Left Behind, let's put together a real, workable, usable system of accountability for our schools. And one of its major players, the teachers union, is refusing to participate because they're pouting.